Connection available. Ooh, we're starting off on a lovely note, aren't we, people? All right. Hey, Retro Road Mappers, it's Mod Betty. What day is today? December 10th. Happy birthday, PJ, Patrick J. Lally. And tomorrow's my sister PJ, Pamela June's birthday, so happy birthday to them as well. Welcome, smiles, everyone, smiles. Welcome to Retro Roadmap, Facebook Live, Retro Roadmap. Oh my goodness. Episode 49. Yo, Cliff Hillis, nice to see you. Debbie, nice to see you as well, too. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, and thank you for showing me that the comment section is working, because I'm always wondering about that. Jerry, nice to see you. Yeah, so how crazy? Yes, Craig, you're so right. 2 weeks until Christmas Eve, which is to think that we all started hanging out like this back in March on St. Patty's Day, and now we're almost at Christmas. This is kind of nuts. So yeah, so 2 weeks from now. So a couple of things while we're waiting for people to come in. I'm not gonna, hit the ground running. And now I've got some Van Halen song going through my head. 2 weeks from now. So 2 weeks from now is Christmas Eve. I will not be doing this on Christmas Eve, just so you know. And I'm sure you won't be either. You're probably going to be doing stuff and things and stuff. But next week, the, whatever it is, like the 19th? I'll have to check. Next Thursday, okay? Next Thursday, I will be here. Thank you for letting me know about Lynn. I appreciate it. Charles, nice to see you. So next Thursday, whatever day that is, whatever number day that is, I will be here. And then the week after will be Christmas Eve. Not doing that. But the week after that, if we can look into the future 2 weeks, and 2 weweeks, and it will be, well, I always mess this up, New Year's Day Eve. No. Yeah, it's like the day, like New Year's, no, will it be New Year's Eve day? I think it'll be New Year's Eve day. Yeah, I think it's New Year's Eve day. Irregardless. Thank you, 17th. Okay, 17th, 18th, 19th, right. Regardless. I said irregardless to be funny, just so you know. It's how I get my kicks above the waistline, sunshine. So anyhow, today is episode 40. Now we're going to be talking about Washington State. Not Washington, D.C. Washington State, way over here. I mean, over here. And then next week, hello, Carousel. And next week will be Oregon. And then the last week, December 31st, my dad's birthday, California, here I come. And then I will be honest, not sure what's going to happen in 2021. I am going to be done. I will have started. You all, we've been on a road trip in a way. We've been on a mental road trip since since March. We have gone to every single state in the union, even Alaska and Hawaii. And we only have a few more to go, but we have found the cool vintage places that are hopefully still going to be around. Craig, you're right. One night in Bangkok. You got that one. Brian Farr, nice to see you from New York. So can you imagine how much travel we have done? How many miles we've put on our little mental car? How many calories? How many road snacks we've eaten? I gotta tell you, people, starting out here, I was all like, this is great. This is grating. But over here, I'll be honest, if I never see another black and white checked floor with 12 by 12 tiles and pink and, that kind of retro, like the Peach Pit from 90210, like that fake diner stuff, I'm done. I'm just kind of like over it. But luckily, here's the crazy thing. So we're talking about Washington State right here. I have so many places to share with you that have nothing to do with places that kind of look like 50s diners. Excuse me, I got something in my eye here. So let me hit the ground running, okay? So let me show you the map. Here's the map. I've done this the whole time. I'm not going to stop now. I got my little maps here. And you'll see what I do. For those of you who are recently tuning in and wondering about How does Mod Betty do this every week? Well, I've pretty much got some go-to places that I like to research that I know are going to have authentic vintage places with authentic vintage charm. And I go and I research them and I kind of run them through the Mod Betty filter to say, does that sound good to me? Or meh, I got nothing. Like, I would not go out of my way to see that. Your mileage may vary, and if it does, you're free to make your own TV show. But anyhow, and then what I do, which is kind of fun to me, is I put all these pins on a Google map, right? I put all the pins on a map, and then when I go to decide which ones are going down, I kind of zoom out. So like it goes like, whoa, and I see actually where the pins fell. And sometimes I'm surprised at the clusters of them. Sometimes I'm surprised by the randomness of it, but I love that because it's almost like I plan my journey based on the pins. And also you can kind of see that I'm very inconsistent with my checking them out, but I tend to go from what I call my little red one, like they start as little blue, like little pins. And if I get excited about a place, I turn the little blue pin into a red, like lightning bolt, which kind of is one of those things in life you should do. Like a place that you're kind of interested in, you're like, okay, that's it. A place that you like should be a red lightning bolt. And a place you really like is kind of like a red explosion over here. Jeff Cooper, nice to see you. Long time no chat. Everybody, Jeff Cooper's from the UK, and I love showing off that I have an international audience. So thank you, Jeff Cooper. I bet you'll know where to go to find authentic vintage charm in the US if you ever come back here, which I hope you do. But let's get started. And here's the thing I want to mention to you too. Talking about, life and road trips and how similar they are. I realized when I was putting together like what I was going to talk to you about, like I could go, from the east to the west type of thing. I could go alphabetical. There's so many ways to tell you about places, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, if I only had one word to give you to talk about Washington, if I always said, I get 5 minutes and here's what you want to know. I got one word for you right here. I'm going to put this down. My shoulder's kind of aching. And my nose is tingling. But one word, McMenamins. McMenamins. It's a last name, and I will be mentioning them next week when I talk about Oregon or Oregon. I'm probably mispronouncing that too. But McMenamins. Oh my gosh. So I never heard of this. It's kind of a brew pub chain, but it is so much more than a brew pub chain. It is like a lifestyle. I am so smitten by this brand, which you rarely hear Mod Betty say, right? Am I right? But McMenamins is like a 20-plus-year-old chain, but business brand, and it is started with two brothers who started some brew pubs in Washington State and Oregon. And then what they have done is, the thing that I love is they find cool old buildings and they transform these buildings into either brew pubs and restaurants or hotels, which are I love them. We had an opportunity to stay in one, and I'm not going to give you the details because that's going to be next week. We didn't stay in one in Washington State, but as soon as we stayed in the one in Portland, I was like over the moon. I got in touch with my friends at the National Trust for Historic Places, and I said, you have to have somebody write about this place and this whole concept of what they do, because Mod Betty and her ham-handed words and goofiness, I won't do it justice. But McMenamins. So McMenamins, I'm going to read you a little bit. They did start in Portland. Now they've got over 50 popular establishments, pubs, breweries, hotels, and movie theaters. So in Washington State, I could spend the entire hour talking about their places, but I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of their names. So they will kind of like, if you're doing a research for a trip to Washington State and I say it, then if you read about it later, it might trigger a memory of like, oh, that's the place Mod Betty thought was pretty cool. So McMenamins, that's the name you have to remember. Google it, bookmark it. But they've got the Anderson School in Bothell. I'm going to be mispronouncing words, as I often do. I'm consistent. What can I say? I print out my stuff. I mispronounce words. I look here as opposed to there. I'm an authentic version of my own self. The Anderson School in Bothell, the Kalama Harbor Lodge, the Olympic Club in Centralia, the Elks Temple in Tacoma, the Spar Cafe in Olympia. They've got the North Shore Lagoon in Bothell, McMenamins on the Columbia in Vancouver. They've got one in Mill Creek, and the Queen Anne and Six Arms in Seattle. So literally, like if I had only had a 10-minute episode, I'm looking at my clock. Actually, I got my clock right here. I got my clock right here. His name is Paul Revere. If I only had 10 minutes, McMenamins, you would be so psyched. You would be like, Maud Betty, you steered me in the right direction. I will go, it's Mick, well, I can read it here. Duh. Thank you. McMen, McMen, like men, like women and men. McMenamin. 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 There used to be a place in Easton, Massachusetts, McMenamins, that served a really good burger. I remember that. So anyhow, McMenamins. But guess what? Thank you, Debbie. I love you guys too. I have so many more minutes to tell you about places, so I'm going to do that. And here's the funny thing is I thought, you know what? I bet I'm going to start with Seattle because I see a lot of my pins right over here. So Seattle's over here. But instead, I am totally starting on the east side here because this is, check it out, I learned how to pronounce it correctly, Spokane. Spokane, Washington. Right over here. And the reason I'm starting with that is because I have actually been to Spokane, Washington. Not even for 12 hours, but I was still there. This was the trip that Retro Road Husband and I took from Portland. Like right Portland. From Portland. Oh, I could show on my map. Here, hold on. So we flew into Portland and we stayed there for a while, and then we drove through Washington, and then we went through Idaho, and that's when we did the trip where we went and saw Piano Pat at Great Falls, Montana. Remember that? The place with the mermaids and the tiki bar. I can picture the sign. Anyhow, that's the trip we went to. So we didn't have a lot of time to stay. It was like kind of an overnight. I found a little cute motel in Spokane that we stayed at, the Ruby Motel, which I recommend. It's kind of a cool 1950s motel in downtown. So it was great. We got to stay there. It's totally renovated. And it is right in downtown, so you can like park your car and just walk around. So that's what we did when we got in there. But we only had like we took some time. We drove. We got there to check in, and then we went to go get some food. Then we went to sleep. Then we got up. We had some, I can't even remember what we had for breakfast. I assume we had some breakfast. We're always having breakfast. And then we had to leave because we were going to have, oh, that was it. We didn't have breakfast in Spokane because we were going to have a late breakfast with our Aunt Beverly. Aren't you fascinated by these details? Long story short, didn't spend enough time in Spokane, but if I was going back, which I want to, I would do this. So here's a place, again, starting with the most important places first and then continuing with them because I'm only giving you the important places. Sweet Fancy Moses, people, the Martin Woldson Theater at the Fox in Spokane, Washington. Now, I look at every little vintage theater and little place, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice. Oh, that's got a nice sign. Oh, the insides are kind of neat for that. You know, I'm kind of like, da-da-da, this is nice, this is nice, this is nice. And I believe it's Jen Sincero who got me into the phrase, holy hell balls, I don't know. But this place, the Martin Woldson Theater at the Fox in Spokane, Washington, Google it. Google it and go to foxtheaterspokane.org/explore the theater because you will see an Art Deco theater that has been renovated. It was opened in 1931. It did a bazillion-dollar renovation, and it was so worth it. I literally kind of had to clutch onto the dashboard when I saw it because I was like, this place is beautiful. Absolutely Art Deco. Gah! Just beautiful. It reminded me of, and it rivals, I would say, the theater, the Pathé Tuchinski, which is in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Another, if you're going international retro road mapping, the Theater Tuchinski in Amsterdam is so beautiful and so Art Deco. You'll love it. But if you can't get to Amsterdam, go to Spokane, okay? While you're in Spokane, don't only go to the theater, but there's a bunch of stuff you can do. And I'm gonna try to time myself so I don't spend all my time in Spokane, but I kind of feel like I could. And yeah, trust me, the mispronunciations took me a while to read that. They're just part of my charm, all right? Frank's Diners. So Frank's Diners are interesting, and here's the thing. I don't know if any of my diner purists friends are on in the little peanut gallery there, but I'm going to tell you, these types of places are why regular folks get confused about diners, because diner purists are always bitching and moaning about how people are calling diners old train cars, right? And I get that, because the diners that I think of are not old train cars. They are buildings typically made out of porcelain enamel or steel or whatever, built in a factory and then shipped out on like a train or something. They are not originally from a train. But it gets confusing when there's a place in Spokane, 2 places in Spokane, actually 3, because I think there's 2 Franks and a Knight's. Diners out there that were actually made out of old like cars, the dining cars of a railroad. So Frank's Diners are in actual rail cars. We ate in one. I think Susan Nichols, I think you might have mentioned Frank's. Susan gave me a couple of recommendations. Thank you. But that's why people may get confused. And I mean, they're like those long, narrow places. Here's the international counter service. You know, they've got a counter. You can sit on the counter. We sat in a booth. But Frank's Diners in Spokane. And then another place that Susan, you mentioned, which I thought was adorable, was the Montvale Hotel in Spokane. You recommended it. It's the oldest hotel in Spokane. Premier Boutique Hotel. It is a registered historical place, and it's right downtown too, so you have choices. Like when we went there, we went to the Hotel Ruby, and there's also one now called the Ruby 2. And I'm sure if I said you went there in the afternoon, you could say it was a Ruby Tuesday. I won't say that though. I'm serious. I'm a serious person. So, but there's a couple of places you can go to stay downtown, and you can also walk around. So when we walked around, I'm totally gonna, you guys, you're going to crack up at this one because I know I did, and I'm happy to share the story. So we were looking for a place. We had just gotten off the road. We were looking for a place to get a cocktail. And actually, our little motel had a place you could get a cocktail, but we wanted to just kind of stretch our legs, walk around, see what was going on. And we looked up this place. It's still there, called the Volstead Act. Now, the Volstead Act is a little bit one of your like kind of hip kind of cocktail places, but that's what I like. I like to have one good cocktail, and the more dive bars I see, the more I appreciate a good cocktail. But the Volstead Act in Spokane, so we went there. We had we had the place to ourselves. So it was a lot of fun. Retro Road husband and me and we were chatting with the bartender and talking about stuff, and talking about Please Don't Tell and all the hip bars in New York and whatnot. Long story short is, I don't even know how we found this out, but I go to give him my credit card to pay for the cocktails, and it was this credit card that I've had for a couple of years. I'm kind of proud of the fact that I've had this one credit card, account for so long. And I'm not kidding you when somehow it came out that I had my credit card, because it says like member since blah, 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 whatever year. Yeah, I had that credit card for longer than our bartender had been alive. Yes, my credit card account was older than our bartender, and our bartender was old. Well, he was old enough to drink, and he was old enough to serve drinks. So that was just kind of funny to be like, wow, the years are passing. So that was kind of hysterical. But that's the Volstead Act. I know if I go back there, I will totally try to use the same credit card. Moving right along, because we're going to I still got a whole page of Spokane. I'm going to rattle that off so we can make sure we get to some of these other places. But the Palm Court Grill restaurant, it is in the Davenport Hotel. Looks like a shishi place. And if you don't want to stay in the shishi hotels, like you maybe want to stay in the motel, you can always go to their bar or their restaurant and kind of absorb the ambiance. If you're not into shishi at all, I'm going to send you to Dick's Hamburgers. So Dick's Hamburgers is an iconic location of it in Spokane. We saw that. I took some pictures of the sign. It's also a little bit of a regional chain, so you'll see a bunch of those in the Seattle area, things like that. Old school 1950s, get your burgers and fries, you're all set. For anyone, Craig Nye, I think you're on here. Vintage carousel alert, and Debbie Bleaky too. I know you like the vintage carousels like I like the vintage carousels. Spokane has a park, and in the park has a Looff carousel, Looff. It's one, that's who made the horses and things. It's the Riverfront Park Carousel, and they spell carousel with 2 R's in the middle. I don't know why. Maybe it's because like the horses are like a little pair when you do them. It was built in 1909, and here is an interesting thing. So it was built in 1909 by Charles Looff, because he was a carousel builder, and he built it as a gift for his daughter Emma, because she and her husband Louis owned the Natatorium Park in Spokane. So there's like a direct connection between them. So I think that's totally cool. Also, that park that's in Spokane is, it looks like it's on a little like islandy type thing, surrounded by water, a bunch of neat things in that park. So if you like, it's like go for the carousel and stay for like the rest of the stuff. Oh, and I did not realize that. Jerry Gray, that sounds awesome. I could totally eat a $70 steak. And carousel is a ring machine. Pull the brass ring, people. I love that. Thank you, Susan, for adding that. Also in Spokane, and yeah, just real quick, if anybody has any recommendations for Washington State specifically, throw them in the comment section. They may be something that I'm going to cover anyway, or it may be something I missed, but I only have an hour and I don't get to every place. So add your comments, because you're not only going to be helping me, but you're also be helping the people that are in the comment section now and the folks who are going to be watching this after it is posted to the Retro Roadmap Facebook page videos, and when I do YouTube. Actually, YouTube, they don't get the comments, but you'll really be helping out your fellow Retro Roadmappers by adding your knowledge to the database. It's kind of like the hive mind, I call it, or like stone soup, where I add my bit and you add yours. You know what? Walla Walla. I know that, I was going to talk about Walla Walla. I don't have anything on here, Jerry. And the funny thing is there was, what was that thing? Oh, Jeannie Canerney. I mean, she would know. There was a thing on Sesame Street about the witches in the Walla Walla, Washington. I'm going to have to post that. Mental note, but there was a thing. I think they were telling you about their wigs. They wore wiry wigs. They were talking about W's. This is when if anybody saw, like if anybody kind of Googled all my pop culture references and stuff like that, you would totally know what eras I grew up in. Has nothing to do with the crow's feet or the wrinkles on my face. All right, where was I? Doyle's Ice Cream Parlor, Spokane. Landmark since 1939. International here is a counter. They have counter service because it is a soda fountain. I love that. The Skyway Cafe looks like a totally neat place in Spokane. It's a cafe at Feltz Airfield, which is like an Art Deco. It used to be the original what do you call it? Airport there, until they made a bigger one. And there's a museum. If you're into like aviation history, there's a museum there too. Okay, so that is just a tidbit. But can you imagine if you only had to go to one place in Washington State? Spokane. I mean, Spokane. Say Spokane, not Spokane. That's what I say. But moving along, because we've got a lot of places to cover. Oh, forgot to move my cute little table in here. But we were over in Spokane, and then I'm like, okay, what's down here? And then we're going to move over here, and don't worry, we're going to get to it. So Pomeroy, Washington, the Pomeroy City Walk. I mentioned that because it's really neat. What they've done is private collector David Webb and the Lost Highway Museum and the people have created a place where all of the old vintage signs that they have collected in Pomeroy are hung up and lit, neon signs, and it's a great thing to go walk. They kind of like call them in different places. I know Tucson, Arizona has one. They call it like a sign garden. I think there's another place I'm going to mention. Excuse me. That has that, but I love it when, maybe the business is closed, but somebody knows to save the signs. And if you're a neon sign aficionado, it's Pomeroy, Washington. Zilla. Okay, maybe you're not a neon sign person, but you're in what us in the biz call a programmatic architecture kind of person. She says where they're 25-cent words. Basically, that means buildings that are built in the shape of something else. And we've got a teapot gas station, a teapot dome-shaped gas station. You know, there's a few teapot places over here on the East Coast. There's one, I think, in West Virginia, right near Newell. Bedford, Pennsylvania also has one that's more of a teapot versus a whatever. Yes, I am very outspoken. You are right. But Zilla, the thriller from Zilla. I guess, would that be? Yeah, I'm goofing on myself, people. It's just me often, so I'm just riffing on myself. But Zilla, Washington has a place called the Teapot Dome Gas Station. It's a quirky little local attraction, but if you got to stop and get gas, you might as well stop and get it at a place that's shaped like a teapot. You get your picture taken there, you do a little selfie action, you do a little Instagram, a little hashtag, and then people go there. Now, here's a couple of places. Ellensburg, Washington. I found out that Ellensburg, Spokane, and Seattle all had crazy fires back in the late 1880s, which I think is, I would love to learn more about why that happened. But Ellensburg, two places I want to recommend. Well, kind of two and a half, because one's right next to another. So one of them is just a cool little vintage burger place called Rosso's U-Totem. And I swear I am just recommending this. It looks like a cool vintage burger place. You know, you get your burgers, you get your fries. But I love the fact that it's got that kind of old quirky name, like, and it's called U. It's like the letter U dash tote, T-O-T-E, and then M. You know, kind of like casual M, U-Totem. And originally I thought maybe it had to do with totem poles, and then I realized no, it's like you grab them, like it's you take them by the, like, you know, what is it, white manna, or somebody like buy them by the sack. It's like U-Totem, you go and get them. They don't deliver it to you. Anyhow, Rosso's U-Totem's been around, and I just love the name. So I would go there for a burger, or I would go to the Red Horse Diner. Now, this is not really a diner in the diner building sense. It's a diner in the restaurant sense. And I am smitten with the Red Horse Diner because it used to be an old mobile gas station. And that's the reason they call it the the Red Horse Diner, because it's got a red Pegasus on it, the flying red horse. And I'm looking around like this going like, duh, I should have gone out to the garage because I have an old mobile sign that I could have showed you, because mobile gas runs through the veins of the Lennon-Murphy family in my dad's side of the family. And so I have such a fondness for anytime I see that mobile gas Pegasus, the flying red horse. So this is in Ellensburg. They've got a place you can get burgers, and the place is packed with vintage service station memorabilia. I know when I go there, I would feel like I was there with my dad. And this is kind of cute too. So part of it is the diner part, but then they also have a bar literally adjacent to it, practically the same thing. And instead of the flying horse, they call it the nodding donkey. Now, the nodding donkey, I think, is two things. One is because it serves alcohol there, but also it's kind of a riff on the flying horse. That there is, next to these places is also a cannabis shop. So you might be kind of chilling out and nodding, a little bit of a nodding donkey action when you're hanging out there. But that is the Red Horse Diner in Ellensburg. Now we're in Tacoma, Washington. And I got a couple of places to list here. Another one of these kind of classic burger joints that you don't have over here, maybe a small regional brand, or maybe just a one-off, you know, local mom and pop place, the Pick Quick Drive-In. So you pick it up quick. The Pick Quick Drive-In in Tacoma. Landmark walk-up joint, classic burgers, hot dogs, and shakes served at the counter. Retro roadmap worthy like you wouldn't believe. Another thing too that I always try to put in things that I think people would be interested in, and I know retro road mappers because you've told me you love car museums, and who doesn't like to look at old school cars? I mean, it's funny, I look at my 2019 Honda whatever, I don't think it's going to be in a museum at any time, but those classic cars from the 50s and 60s, I love them. So in Tacoma, Washington is the LeMay America's Car Museum. It's a 4-story museum on an 8-acre campus with cars, trucks, and motorcycles. Looks pretty cool. And I bet they also have, you know, anytime you think of cars, you think of road trips. So there's going to be some road trip-abilia there. So yes. And as everybody knows, my new project is called Just Drive Your Life. So I am very car-centric lately, talking about where you get to go on your life is by picking a destination, just like a road trip, and driving towards it, okay? So that's in Tacoma. Here's a place that I didn't know about until I did this research, so thank you all so much for giving me the opportunity and the excuse to show up every week and do these things. Think about it, okay? I'm just gonna go off script for a smidge right here, but this is just so crazy to me because I have written 5 books, right? I got 4 of them right here, right? I got these right here, available in my shop if you want them, retroroadmap.com/shop. Okay, so I wrote 4 books, five books, but I only got 4 available. And that took me a really long time, but because I show up every week here for these Retro Roadmap Facebook Lives, I have pretty much done years worth of research for each one of these states. I could typically almost write a book for each state now because I have gone out and I've done this research. So thank you for that, for giving me the reason to show up every week and to do this research, because I am discovering places in the U.S. along with you. Like, I discover them. This is my jam, people. I get all excited about what I discover, and I share it. That, to me, that little cycle is what keeps Maud Betty going. I do it. You know, that's why I used to collect stuff. That's why I like to share new things. It's just my jam. Okay, and so here's a place in Tacoma that I didn't know about. It's Brown and Haley. Brown and Haley is a candy factory, and they have a factory store. Num num num. But I did not know this. Almond Roca. So Almond Roca is like a candy that I didn't really know about until literally as I'm writing about this, I Google, what is Almond Roca made of? Because it makes me think of, it comes in like a little pink thing, and I think it's wrapped in like gold foil, kind of grandma candy looking, but oh my goodness. It is chocolate covered almond butter crunch. That is like one of my favorites. And so you can go to the Brown and Haley factory store. They started in 1912, and in 1923 they invented the Almond Roca. So think about it, a couple of years, maybe in 2023, you can go and it will be a 100-year anniversary of the Almond Roca, and you can eat a lot of it. Jerry Gray, that's so interesting. That's the definition of a teacher. Had I known that was the definition of a teacher, I might have turned into a teacher, but teachers to me, that just did not appeal to me. Maybe it's because of the little kids. But anyhow, I love to share and I love to discover and share. So if I'm a teacher, well, you know, call me Ishmael. The last place in Tacoma I want to mention to you is an old theater. And one of the reasons why I'm mentioning this is because I don't know if like the old-timey theaters where you grew up had different names. Like we had the Orpheum, and there was the Paramount and the Fox and things. Like they were all old school ones like that. But the Pantages, okay, I had never heard of the Pantages Theater. There is one, I believe it was a chain from back in the day. The one in Tacoma was built in 1915, still open now. It holds musicals, live music, and comedy. But again, with my little pop culture references, as this is how my brain works, I started immediately hearing a Ricky Lee Jones song going through my head as soon as I said the Pantages, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe she says the word Pantages in Chuck E's In Love, and I had no idea when I first heard that song what she was even talking about, people. So there's a Pantages in Tacoma. If you love old theaters like I love old theaters, you want to check it out. Now, another random place that I just want to throw out to you, because speaking of things I love me some donuts. There's a place called the Original House of Donuts, and I love this place because it is old school in kind of a 50s and 60s, a bit of a mid-century modern looking building, and I am such a judger of architecture that I like to support places that have really interesting architecture. So if I can go support a place that is in a place like it's like boring brick place or cool interesting place, I will go spend my money in the interesting place. And the reason I like the Original House of Donuts in Lakewood, Washington, frankly, is they're in a neat little building. They look like they have delicious donuts, and they were smart enough to incorporate their cool little building into their logo. And I'm telling you, I saw that logo and I was like, bam, that would make a great t-shirt. So I would go there, Original House of Donuts, and I would get me some donuts. Now, here's a place I'm probably going to mispronounce. Issaquah. That looks pretty close enough. It's got 2 S's and a Q-A-H. Q-A-Q-U-A-H. The triple X, XXX, Root Beer Drive-In. Now, this was neat because it was not on my radar. It's been around. Triple X used to be a brand of root beer stands, started in 1930. This one is kind of old, not as old school as that. Well, it was started in 1968, so, just a couple of years ago. And the Triple X in root beer in Issaquah, there's only one other in the world, and oh crap, the other one is in Indiana. For a minute there, I thought I forgot to write down where it was. So Triple X root beer, if you want to be like, I want to go to them all you need to do is go to Issaquah, Washington, and someplace in Indiana and find it, okay? Now, moving right along, North Bend, Washington. I'm going to mention Tweed's Cafe, and it is a legit old school place, opened in 1941. But in 1989 to 1990, it became famous because it was on the show Twin Peaks. Remember, oh hey, the pies and the coffee? That was that place. So not only is it an old school place, retro roadmap wise, but it's also one of those places that you can be like, oh look, they used to have this on a TV show. So Tweed's Cafe in North Bend. There's a couple others to check them out too. In that area, like North Bend, there's a few things. As I mentioned, like, let me just show you. I have so many pins on my map, and there's no way in an hour I can even tell you about all these places. But that also gets you, like, enough to get you on the road, but I don't want to take all the fun out of exploring on the road. Like, that kind of, I try to be in depth, especially with my books. I didn't want to make any place feel left out, but then I also didn't want to take the fun out of it. And I think I'm quoting a greeting card that I have that I'm like, I'm not taking the fun out of road tripping. I'm just making it more efficient. Like, I think about that with my books. The fact that, like, you don't waste time trying to find the places, like, oh, driving around and getting lost, because I tell you exactly where they are, So to me, that is helpful. But speaking of things, remember we were talking about diners earlier? Here is an actual legitimate East Coast, old school, stainless steel diner on Bainbridge Island. It's called the Madison Diner, and I'm going to read you its provenance, because this is the deal with old school stainless steel diners. They were built in factories and moved around, so therefore you can easily move them around. Like, can you imagine, like kind of like mobile homes? Like our house, it would be pretty hard to move. You could do it, but mobile homes are meant to be picked up and trucked around, just like diners. So the Madison, and this is a cool thing, the Madison Diner is a Federo. That's the company who made it in 1948. It was originally located in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. That is like right down the street from me, or right over the street from me. It was known as the Willow Grove Diner. So crazy. Pennsylvania Diner, now across, and I would say this for our international friends, and also with those of us who are really bad at geography. So Pennsylvania, it was made in New Jersey. It was put in Pennsylvania, and now it's way over here on Bainbridge Island. Like, isn't that cool? In 1963, it was moved back to New Jersey, where it remained in storage until 1996. And I'm quoting this from somebody. Actually, I'm quoting the fabulous Deborah Jane Seltzer of RoadsideArchitecture.com. She was the one who figured this out, so total prompts to her. 1963, the diner was moved to New Jersey. It remained in storage until 1996. Then it was moved in Bainbridge Island in 1997. It was called the Water Diner. Then it was the Big Star Diner. Then it was Richie's 305 Diner. And then in 2011, it became the Madison Diner. Whew, that's like going through the family tree, for crying out loud. But the Madison Diner in Bainbridge Island. So if you actually want, it's like the only vintage diner I found in all of Washington State. So now finally, and we're making good time here, don't worry. I say to myself, don't worry. We are in Seattle. Now, some people may think Sleepless in Seattle. I just thought of that one. Other people would think, like to me, I would think of grunge music, Kurt Cobain and all that. I think of Archie McPhee. So Archie McPhee, for those of you who don't know, used to be, in my mind, I used to get catalogs back in maybe the late 80s or the 90s before the internet. And they are filled with just quirky, goofy, silly things that they would find, like giant pairs of underpants and bags of plastic ants and like rubber dolls that wiggled when you do, just really silly, kitschy stuff. And so I just love silly, kitschy things. Snow domes, they used to carry snow domes, maybe they still do. Gag gifts, toys and oddities, party supplies and costumes. Now you can get all that stuff online, and you can get it pretty much anywhere. You can also get it at Archie McPhee, but I love the fact that they actually still have a location in Seattle. So to me, that would be one of those meccas that would get me to go to Seattle. And then the neat thing is that there are so many other places in Seattle to check out that are retro roadmap worthy, that I do actually think that it's worth spending a couple of days in Seattle. So for example, you may stay there to go to Archie McPhee, but then you might want to check out, there's a couple of museums. Now I don't often send you to museums. That's a whole nother thing. We could spend all day talking about museums, but I will send you to these two. One is the Seattle Music of Popular Culture, because I am a pop culture hound from a certain era. They call it Mopop, which I think is kind of funny. That looks like a lot of a fun place to be. And even more kind of kitschy and wonderful is Seattle's official Bad Art Museum. Not to be confused with the Museum of Bad Art, which I think was in Dedham, Massachusetts, and now I think is in Somerville. Oh yeah, it's in the basement, the Somerville Theater. But in Seattle, Seattle's official Bad Art Museum, or official Museum of Bad Art, is in the there's a place called Cafe Racer, and they've got peculiar and hilariously tacky paintings filling the walls of Cafe Racer. So if you like outsider art, if you like goofy, quirky, funny, kitschy collections, that's what I would do. Now, speaking of outsider art, or maybe this is insider art, or technically it's undersided art, because I'm going to be talking about, for a few smidges here, the Fremont Troll. And I realized as soon as I said that out loud, Fremont, it could be Fremont, whatever. It's the Troll, okay? It is a piece of public art underneath an overpass, like under a bridge, kind of like, you know, the three Billy Goats Gruff. They go tripping, and there's a troll under the bridge. Well, this is a giant troll that you gotta go see, and you can pull over, you can take your picture. I saw a picture recently. He is smartly wearing a mask so he doesn't get himself or other people sick. And that would be a perfect place to go and get a selfie. This is a place in Seattle. Now, I have another project that I kind of am doing smidges on called Mid-Mod Map, which is very similar to Retro Roadmap, but it's mid-century modern designy places, a little bit more, you know, not so mom and pop and not so like burgers and fries, things like that. But there's this, there are a few places that I have like one map of the US that has them all. So it's not state by state, because sometimes states don't have anything, you know, mid-century modern. Like my book would be like a page. But anyhow, mid-century modern, mid-mod map, I would recommend the Canlis Restaurant. It is a landmark fine dining destination since the 1950s, offering Pacific Northwest fare, which I love that idea, in a mid-century modern home. So it's kind of like that Jetsonian, or just a little bit more like, not like your grandma's place, but like your grandma's place if she like decorated because she got the MoMA catalog, you know? And I love that notion of Pacific Northwest fare, because here's the thing I found out too, and this is the deal with travel in general, even this virtual pretend travel that I'm doing when I'm doing my research and you're doing when you're picturing these things in your head, is that you discover things about yourself when you travel. And one of the things I realized when I was, especially in this state, me doing, like, those will take so long to digest. But then when I was listening to some of these places in Seattle, because, you know, Seattle is kind of like right near, like Washington's got all this, you know, the ocean, and it's got the water and stuff like that. So they got like fish and clams and crabs and things. And now that, all of a sudden I was like, ooh, like I could do that. Like there's a place in here I'll talk about in a second that's talking about clams, and they're going to be different clams than my East Coast clams. So like to me, that's really exciting. But I never would have discovered that about myself unless I had done even this virtual trip traveling. So Seattle, we've got some more minutes and I want to make sure I get to all these. So yeah, there's the Space Needle, right? So the Space Needle is totally iconic, and that was built for the 1962 World's Fair. 605 feet tall. It's an observation deck and a rotating restaurant. So I think that's a bit mid-century modern too, 1962. So that would go in mid-mod map. And then, for any of you who happen to see what I posted on the Retro Roadmap Facebook page moments before I started the video, I posted a smidge of a Simpsons episode about the monorail. And first of all, that whole piece just slays me on so many levels. But the other reason I did that is because there is a monorail in Seattle. And the reason there's a monorail in Seattle is because they built it for the 1962 World's Fair. And it was to shuttle people between the fairgrounds and downtown. And then they kept it going. And so it is still, takes people where they want to go. And it said that Seattle Center Monorail is one of the few fully self-sufficient public rail transit systems in the nation. And I even wrote to myself, cue The Simpsons when I wrote that. So if you, after the video, not right now, after the video, go back to the Retro Roadmap Facebook page and look at the little Simpsons thing, and it's just kind of very, what is that one? Shapoopy, the Music Man. The Music Man, yeah, Retro Road Husband loves the Music Man. So yes, the monorail, it just cracked me up. So, oh, speaking of theaters, so I've got a couple more places. We're going to be in Seattle, and then we're going to go out to the coast before we sign off for the day. The Paramount Theater in Seattle. Totally gorgeous looking old school theater. 2,000, almost 3,000 seats. Absolutely gorgeous inside. One of those really classic downtown high-end theaters, which I totally love. Opened in 1928. Pike Place Market. Now, I'm sure these are some of those places that I don't need to spend the too long talking about because they get so much press. But Pike, I was going to call it Pike's Peak. Pike Place Market is a public market opened in 1907 and is one of the oldest continually operating public farmers markets in the United States. And for those of you on the East Coast and especially near Philly, you might think of it as the Seattle version of the Reading Terminal Market. They are known for their fresh fish. I think they throw the fish in the air and people catch them and stuff like that. They've got a bunch of neon signs. There's places that you don't have to just go. And like, that's the thing. Like, I love it when I go to these markets. But like, if I don't live there, I'm not going to be like, oh, look, I bought a fish in Seattle. But if I can go and eat some fish. So they have some really good restaurants there and just a neat place to look around. So that's the Pike Place Market. So you'll want to do that. Oh, that's cool, Craig. I did not know. That's so neat that you have been to Seattle and you bought a cuckoo clock. That is awesome. Seattle Underground. Craig, I don't know if you went to Seattle Underground, but this was fascinating to me. There is a whole tour of places that used to be ground level in Seattle, and then there was this crazy fire. There was a fire June 6th of 1889. 1889, summer of 1889 was not a good time for people in Seattle or in Spokane or in Ellenville because there was a bunch of fires there. But after they built I think Seattle totally burned to the ground or thereabouts. Like, don't quote me. This is when I'm not a history teacher because I'm not giving you specific details, but just general. Everything burned, and then they had to build everything up again, but they said it's not got to be in masonry. Like, kind of like the three, if you think about it, not the three bears, Three Little Pigs. You know, you get your straw house, you get your other house, and you get your one that doesn't burn. Well, they've learned from the three pigs right here. So they constructed everything of masonry, and all the streets had to be higher. So now you can go underneath the street, and it's kind of interesting because it's like, oh, the whole underground, like there was untoward stuff going on. So you learn about that when you go on the tour, and I just think that's kind of fun. If another museum that you might want to go to, Pinball Museum. They have a pinball museum in Seattle that I it's kind of a thing, and I think that's kind of fun. And then here's a cool place, that Ivar's Acres of Clams. Now, I don't know if Ivar's, I didn't find out how old they are because they've kind of reimagined themselves. But the fact that it says Acres of Clams, and I'm kind of a clam, I like myself some fried clams, and I like myself some steamed clams. I'm not necessarily like my dad used to eat them raw. I've recently learned how to eat oysters raw, and I kind of think those. Brian, I did not know about the Scooby-Doo thing. Now I'm going to have to go watch that episode. See, I am totally the pop culture nerd as far as certain eras go, because I would totally get that too. But isn't it funny, the places that you pick up certain bits of history or knowledge is just by, you know, these random things. I mean, hello, you know, Schoolhouse Rock, History Rock, Multiplication Rock is brought to you by Nabisco. See, that's what goes on underneath this short haircut. So Ivar's Acres of Clams. It's a local chain dishing up fried fish, chowdas, in casual quarters with nautical accents. You got me sold there, people. I'm all about that. Couple of more places to eat, and then we're going to sign off. But so here's a fun place. Mike's Chili Parlor. Mike's Chili Parlor in Seattle since 1922. Family owned. Burgers, hot dogs, and obviously a chili. Cute little place. And it's a bar too. So it's been open since 1922. Mike's Chili Parlor. So if you're into chili, bring your Tums, but eat that too. Has no bearing on the fact that I'm sure their food is good. I'm just saying I get like a little indigestion sometimes with the things. And then Mike's Chili Parlor. Oh, and then I just found a place called Beth's Cafe. Yeah, and being Maud Betty, I made myself Maud Betty, but I was born in Elizabeth and then was labeled Beth. So Beth's Cafe in Seattle, iconic. That's me. No frills. Not many. Have you seen me wearing any frills? Maybe thrills, but not frills. No frills here, people. I'm not a frilly gal. So I'm iconic, no frills spot serving American fare, including breakfast items, sandwiches, and hot dogs. So there we go. So Beth's Cafe in Seattle. That was only a tip of the iceberg as far as not only Seattle and Washington State. I have one more place that I want to mention. It's right on the coast here, and I want to mention this because it's right here. It's in Long Beach, and you know, truth in advertising, there's a beach there because it's on the coast. And this place is the Sou'wester Lodge. So the Sou'wester Lodge in Long Beach, Washington is probably one of the very first places that I put on my map of Washington State over 10 years ago when I started Retro Roadmap. When I started Retro Roadmap, I was passionate about going to all these places that were cool and old-timey, and people would send me recommendations, or they would say, hey, we've got this place. And the Sou'wester Lodge is a place that reached out to me and said, hey, we do this thing where people stay at our place and they stay in vintage Airstream trailers. And this was years ago. Like, they were the OG. They were like back before everybody's doing it nowadays. And I say it kind of dismissively. I love, actually, that people are doing it nowadays. But I also want to make sure that the people who were doing it years ago, like the trendsetters, get the recommendation. And that is the Sou'wester Lodge in Long Beach. So I would totally go and stay there too. And then the neat thing is, and I was joking, like Sou'wester versus nor'easter. I'm a bit of a nor'easter myself. There's a bunch of neat little things you can do in Long Beach. I mean, it's a Long Beach, and it is a long beach, and you can drive your car on the beach. They have a sign there that says like longest drivable beach in the world. I think that's up for dispute. But you could go try it. You could go drive your car. I mean, just drive your life. Just drive your life on the car on the beach. There's also a Marshes Free Museum where you'll see like a little, like some crazy taxidermy things, which are kind of fun. Shelburne's Pub looks really cool. So, you know, you go to Long Beach, you stay at the Sou'wester in a cool little vintage place. You go to a few places and you have an authentic vintage experience. And there we go, people. Check us out. We are making good time. We have done 48 states. I didn't do the states from very beginning, but we have 2 states left. I get a bug. Ah, there's a bug. 2 states left. 3 weeks left in the year. Pardon me, I'm slumping down. 3 weeks left of the year. I've got 2 states to go. Next week is going to be episode 50. Episode 50 is going to be Oregon. I'm going to learn how to pronounce it correctly so nobody makes fun of me. And if they do, oh well, I'm the one on camera. And then on 12/31/2020, the last Retro Roadmap Facebook Live, California, here I come. Right back where I started from. I didn't really start there, but that's how the song goes. It would be more like, look at me, I'm doing a road trip across here, and I finally made it to Palm Springs. So yes, so thank you so much for tuning in every week. Thank you for buying my books. If you want to buy a book, I get some states that I get books on, retroroadmap.com/shop. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for showing up. Tell your friends about this. And then when it is safe to do so, like this is such a struggle. I know this, people, because I'm doing the same thing. I want to go love up all the old tiny places that are struggling right now. But I also think it's really important to stay safe and healthy and socially distant. Do what you can online. Buy gift certificates. Get something shipped to someplace. Like, go and be creative about it. But in the meantime, it's Maud Betty signing off from episode 49 of Retro Roadmap Facebook Live, saying life is a road trip, so just grab the wheel and just drive your life.